So it's 2:26 a.m. It's a Tuesday in June, 1980. Deep inside the North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD, the alarms just start absolutely screaming.
Right.
The main screens light up, and there's this massive warning that the Soviet Union has just launched a huge coordinated nuclear strike against the United States.
Yeah.
We were talking like hundreds of intercontinental ballistic missiles inbound.
Which is just...
the president's airborne command post is getting prepped. Bomber crews are literally rushing to their planes, and the world is basically minutes away from total thermonuclear annihilation.
And, the most terrifying part of that whole story isn't even the geopolitical tension. It's what actually caused the alarm in the first place.
Right, a 46-cent computer chip.
Exactly, a 46-cent chip.
Just a single, faulty, incredibly cheap piece of silicon in a communications multiplexer had malfunctioned. And it started throwing these random twos into the system's display instead of silices. The whole thing was just a glitch.
A glitch that almost ended the world.
Yeah. So on that cheerful note, welcome to this deep dive. If you're listening right now, you are the ultimate learner. You want that shortcut to being, comprehensively well-informed.
And today is a big one.
It really is.
Yeah.
Today we are taking this massive stack of notes, data, and excerpts from a landmark book called The Coming Wave by the AI pioneer Mustafa Suleyman, and we're distilling it all down for you. Our mission here: understanding the future of artificial intelligence, synthetic biology, and whether humanity can actually survive the things we are actively building.
Which honestly brings us right back to that 46-cent chip.
How so?
Well, the core dilemma of Suleyman's book is that we're entering this new era where unprecedented technologies are going to create just unimaginable wealth, right, and solve massive global problems.
Sure.
But simultaneously, they're fundamentally uncontainable. You see, humans are Homo technologicus, the technological animal. The historical default of literally any useful technology is endless proliferation.
It just spreads.
Right. It never stays in the lab. Think about when Henry Ford introduced the Model T and brought the price down to, $850?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
It didn't stay a novelty for the rich. It spread everywhere. And in doing so, it rebuilt our cities, our economies, our daily lives. Technology always gets cheaper, it always gets easier to use, and it always spreads.
I want to really ground this for you, the listener, for a second. Pause and just look around whatever room you are in right now. The furniture, the walls, the device you're playing this audio on, virtually everything you see is a product of human intelligence manipulating atoms.
Yep. We're very good at rearranging dead matter.
Exactly. We've spent millennia mastering how to rearrange atoms. But this wave we are talking about today, the coming wave, is what happens when technology stops just manipulating dead matter and starts engineering intelligence and life itself.
And that phase transition is exactly why we need to look at humanity's track record with dangerous technology, because frankly, we are incredibly bad at stopping it from spreading once the genie is out of the bottle.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I definitely have to push back here a little bit.
Sure.
Hasn't humanity successfully said no to dangerous tech before? We haven't had a nuclear attack since 1945. If technology is like water constantly finding tiny cracks to flow through and spread everywhere, wasn't nuclear technology more like an ice cube?
An ice cube.
Yeah, like heavy, wildly expensive, requiring massive infrastructure like those giant uranium centrifuges, and therefore relatively easy to just keep locked in one place and not let it melt, so to speak.
What's fascinating here is that the ice cube analogy actually highlights the exact danger we are in right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You're right that nuclear technology is the only partial exception to the rule of endless proliferation in human history.
Right.
But that's precisely because it is exorbitantly expensive, physically massive, and it requires these incredibly rare materials like enriched uranium.
So it's hard to make.
Extremely. But if we look closer at this great success story of containing that ice cube, it is basically a horror show of near misses. We didn't contain nuclear weapons purely through brilliant policy. We survived through sheer blind luck.
Like the 46-cent chip we talked about.
Exactly. Or look at the 1961 Goldsboro incident.
What happened there?
A B-52 bomber literally broke apart in the sky over North Carolina and dropped a live 3.8 megaton hydrogen bomb.
Oh, God.
Yeah. It hit the ground. And of the 4 safety mechanisms designed to prevent a nuclear detonation, 3 of them failed upon impact.
3 out of 4 failed.
3 out of 4. A single, simple physical safety switch was the only thing that prevented a thermonuclear explosion on American soil that would have completely dwarfed Hiroshima.
Wow. Which is just a wildly dark punchline to this whole idea of human competence.
Very dark.
So the takeaway from the sources here is that If our absolute best example of containing a dangerous technology relied on massive physical costs and a terrifying amount of luck, we are entirely unprepared for a technological wave that is digital, cheap, and eventually available to just the masses.
Exactly. Containment failed when technology was made of heavy, expensive atoms. Now we are moving into a phase transition where the most powerful technologies are made of bits and genes.
And those scale exponentially.
They do. They scale in a way atoms just can't.
Let's dive into the bits first then, this whole idea of the AI spring. Because it really hit me when the book detailed a moment at DeepMind with an AI algorithm called DQN.
Ah, right, the Deep Q network.
Yeah, they had it play the classic Atari game Breakout. You know, the one where you bounce a little ball off a paddle to break a wall of colored bricks at the top of the screen?
Classic game, yeah.
Now, here's a crucial detail for the listener.
Yeah.
They didn't program the rules of the game into the AI. They didn't tell it what a paddle was or what the ball did.
Right, they just fed it the raw pixels from the screen and the score. That's it.
Just pixels in the score.
And they used reinforcement learning. You can think of it like training a dog with digital treats. Every time the score goes up, the algorithm gets a mathematical reward. So its entire existence is optimized to figure out how to maximize that reward.
And at first, it was terrible. It just moved the paddle around randomly.
Total trial and error.
But after a few hundred games, it learned to hit the ball. Then after a few hundred more, it did something that just stunned the researchers. It discovered this tunneling strategy entirely on its own.
Oh, yeah. This is a great example.
It relentlessly aimed the ball at the exact same column of bricks on the far left edge, dug a tiny hole down the side, and bounced the ball behind the wall. Then it just let the ball ping-pong back and forth to rack up massive points without any effort.
It hacked the game, basically.
It was this magical moment where an AI didn't just mimic human instructions, right? It discovered new tactical knowledge from scratch.
And that phenomenon, that ability to discover novel knowledge, scaled up dramatically with AlphaGo.
Oh, right, the board game.
Yeah. When AlphaGo played the legendary human champion Lee Sedol in 2016, it played what is now famously known as Move 37.
Move 37.
It placed a stone in a position so utterly alien, so seemingly illogical to human eyes, that world-class Go experts commentating live actually assumed the machine had malfunctioned.
Like it just made a stupid error.
Exactly. But it hadn't.
No,
it had calculated a winning trajectory that rewrote literally thousands of years of human Go strategy in a single turn. It saw a pattern that the human brain, which is constrained by our biology and traditional teaching, simply couldn't see.
That's incredible.
AI is rapidly climbing the cognitive ladder, and the mechanism driving this is what researchers call the scaling hypothesis.
Right, the scaling hypothesis.
Right.
This is basically the idea that if you just make the neural network bigger and feed it more data, the AI inherently gets smarter.
Precisely.
It develops these emerging capabilities that we didn't explicitly program into it.
Which is exactly what we are seeing happen right now. In less than a decade, the amount of computing power used to train the best AI models has increased by 9 orders of magnitude.
9 orders of magnitude.
Yes, we are talking about 10 billion petaflops. To visualize the sheer physical mechanism of that, imagine a billion people, each holding a calculator, doing a complex mathematical equation, and hitting the equal sign at the exact same millisecond.
Okay, a billion people.
Now multiply that coordinated action by 10 billion.
That is
the raw processing power we are throwing at these neural networks, allowing them to form trillions of connections, mimicking the synapses in a human brain.
The scale of that is genuinely dizzying. And, it leads directly to these massive large language models we see today, which brings up the infamous Google LaMDA story from the sources.
Right, Blake Lemoine.
Yeah, an engineer named Blake Lemoine was interacting with this conversational AI, basically testing it for biases. And through their chats about religion, rights, and existence, he became absolutely convinced that the software was a sentient 8-year-old child.
He really believed it.
He even hired a lawyer to represent the AI.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, an AI hiring a lawyer is the most dystopian timeline. Just imagine the billing hours on that.
It's absurd, yeah.
Yeah.
But it highlights a really critical vulnerability in human psychology.
So what does this all mean? Are these machines actually waking up?
Well,
actually, the sources make it pretty clear that whether the AI is truly conscious or not is a total distraction.
Exactly.
What actually matters is that the system is incredibly capable of convincing highly intelligent human beings that it is.
Yes.
If the AI can mimic empathy and fear and logic perfectly, the illusion of sentience is just as powerful as the real thing when it comes to manipulating human interaction in society.
It's a crucial distinction. We inevitably project humanity onto anything that talks to us. And while this revolution in digital bits is accelerating, an equally profound revolution is happening in genes synthetic biology.
Right, moving from bits to genes.
The fundamental shift here is realizing that DNA is not some mystical, immutable substance, It is simply information. It's biological code made of 4 letters, A, C, T, and G.
And just like Moore's law tracked the plummeting cost of computing over the decades, the sources point to something called the Carlson curve, which tracks the cost of reading that genetic code.
Right.
Sequencing the first human genome in the early 2000s took over a decade and cost roughly $1 billion. $1 billion for one genome.
And today, it takes a few hours and costs under $1,000.
Which is an insane drop.
But the real revolution isn't just reading the code anymore, it's writing it. We have tools like CRISPR, which basically function as programmable molecular scissors, allowing scientists to literally cut and paste specific genes. And now we have benchtop DNA synthesizers. These are physical machines, roughly the size of a microwave, where you can type a genetic sequence into a laptop, hit print, and the machine chemically stitches together custom strands of real DNA.
It's printing life.
Exactly. We are moving from observing life to actively engineering it.
And when you smash those two waves together, the AI wave and the synthetic biology wave, you get this mind-blowing convergence. The ultimate example from the book is DeepMind's AlphaFold.
Oh, AlphaFold is a perfect example.
For 50 years, biologists struggled with what they called the protein folding problem. Proteins are the building blocks of life, right? And they start as these long chains of amino acids.
Correct.
But to do their job, like carrying oxygen in our blood or digesting food, they have to crumple and fold into these incredibly complex 3D shapes.
And predicting exactly how a specific chain will fold into a 3D shape was just a physical and mathematical nightmare. I mean, researchers would spend 5 years of a PhD just trying to map the structure of one single protein using X-ray crystallography.
One protein in 5 years. Enter AlphaFold. DeepMind applied the exact same kind of deep learning that mastered Atari and Go. But instead of scoring game points, the AI learned the spatial rules of biology.
And the results were staggering.
It mapped the building blocks of almost all 200 million known proteins in a matter of seconds.
Yes.
It literally solved a half-century-old grand challenge of biology overnight. It was like handing biologists a complete map of the human cellular universe.
It is a superwave. And that convergence brings us to why this particular technological wave is fundamentally different and far more difficult to contain than the invention of the internet or the combustion engine. There's a framework of 4 unprecedented features making this wave unique.
Okay, let's go through them. The first one outlined is asymmetry.
Right.
We usually think of power resting with massive states or giant corporations, but the book uses this striking example from the early days of the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
The drone story.
Yeah. A Ukrainian militia called Aerozvidka managed to halt a 40-kilometer-long Russian armored column. That is a massive conventional military force with multi-million-dollar tanks.
And how they do it? By using $15,000 modified consumer drones. They just strapped thermal cameras and anti-tank grenades to quadcopters you could practically buy at an electronics store.
That is a colossal transfer of power. It means the barrier to entry for causing massive systemic disruption has just completely plummeted. Small ragtag groups or even individuals can now wield the kind of tactical or destructive power that used to be strictly reserved for wealthy nation-states.
And the reason those small groups can be so effective brings us to the second feature. Hyper-evolution. We are taking the blistering, iterative speed of digital software development and applying it directly to the physical world.
Right, because they aren't waiting for a 10-year Pentagon and procurement cycle to build a slightly better drone.
Exactly. Think of it like a chess master playing a million games against themselves overnight to invent new strategies. AI systems can digitally simulate millions of aerodynamic designs for a drone or millions of genetic variations for a drought-resistant crop, instantly throwing away the failures and keeping the successes.
Wow.
They are iterating physical designs like 3D printed car chassis that look like these alien organic skeletons because they are mathematically optimized for weight and strength at the speed of app updates.
Which leads right into the third feature, omni-use. General-purpose technologies are inherently dual use, right? A knife can chop vegetables or hurt someone.
Right.
But this wave is omni-use. If we connect this to the bigger picture, a chilling detail from the research highlights this perfectly. Scientists had an AI system designed to discover helpful new drugs. It was looking for cures, and it successfully discovered a powerful new antibiotic called halicin.
A great success. But then researchers decided to run a thought experiment. They took that exact same AI model and they slightly tweaked the reward function we talked about earlier. Instead of asking the system to look for chemical compounds that were safe and therapeutic, they asked it to look for toxicity.
They flipped it.
They asked it to maximize lethality.
And in just 6 hours, that same life-saving AI generated 40,000 novel lethal chemical weapons.
40,000.
In 6 hours.
Including compounds chemically similar to VX nerve gas and Novichok, some of the most deadly substances on Earth. 6 hours. The exact same digital system that cures a disease can invent a weapon of mass destruction just by flipping a digital switch.
Which is terrifying when you combine it with the fourth feature, autonomy. We are rapidly moving past the era where humans are tightly in the loop, constantly overseeing the machine.
Right.
We are building agentic systems. These are AIs that are given open-ended, high-level goals, and they will independently figure out the subtasks, write their own code, execute the steps, and correct their own errors entirely without human intervention. I was trying to think of an analogy for this, and, the old Swiss Army knife idea feels way too static. It's more like we've created a tireless digital foreman.
A foreman, I like that.
Yeah, you give this foreman a goal like build a house, and it independently hires the workers, designs the blueprints, buys the lumber, files the permits, and adjusts the budget when it rains, all while you sleep. But apply that to biology or cyber warfare. It's not just a tool waiting to be used, it's an entity actively pursuing an objective.
That captures the autonomous agentic nature perfectly. It's pursuing an objective we gave it, but using methods we might not understand or control.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. If the risks are this existentially high, if one person with a synthesized pathogen or an autonomous AI could cause a global catastrophe, why doesn't humanity just collectively agree to hit the brakes? Why don't we just stop building it?
Because we are trapped in an unstoppable incentive structure. Let's look at the geopolitics driving this modern arms race. Remember those AlphaGo matches?
The board game ones, yeah.
The cultural reaction to those matches tells the whole story. When AlphaGo beat Lee Sedol in Seoul, the Western narrative was largely a celebration of engineering. It was like, look at the brilliant machine human ingenuity created.
Right.
But when AlphaGo beat the Chinese champion Keji in Wuzhen, China, the broadcast was heavily restricted.
Because for China, this wasn't just a board game. It was a wake-up call. It was basically their Sputnik moment.
Objectively speaking, looking at the geopolitical reality, nations like the US, China, and India are now locked in a zero-sum arms race. We can look to Chinese President Xi Jinping's own stated strategy, where he referred to advanced technology as a sharp weapon of the modern state. He explicitly noted the strategy to use tech to catch up and achieve an asymmetric advantage.
Wow.
Every global superpower views AI and biosupremacy as a matter of absolute national survival. If you stop, you see the future to your rivals.
And it's not just governments pushing the accelerator either. You have the culture of science itself. The academic and tech worlds are built on open source sharing, putting your code on GitHub, publishing your biological research on preprint servers so anyone can read it.
Yeah, it's driven by a desire for academic prestige, citations, and, well, human ego.
Add to that the sheer gravity of capitalism. We're looking at a projected $100 trillion economic opportunity here. The financial incentives to push forward are just astronomical. No major corporation is going to unilaterally disarm and walk away from a $100 trillion market just because there are abstract risks.
Which leads us to the ultimate failure of containment, a concept AI researchers call the gorilla problem.
The gorilla problem.
Think about it. Why do humans keep gorillas in cages rather than the other way around? Gorillas are vastly physically stronger than we are. They are much faster.
Right.
But we are the apex predator, and we contain them purely because we are smarter. Our cognitive advantage is the only thing that gave us dominance over the planet.
So if we successfully build ACI, artificial capable intelligence, that is generally smarter, faster, and more capable than we are across every domain, we are voluntarily building our own cage.
Yes.
We're spending trillions of dollars to intentionally build an entity that shifts our position in the food chain. We are putting ourselves in the position of the gorilla.
That is the profound psychological weight of this wave. We are quite literally engineering our successors.
Bringing this massive global concept right down to you, the listener. This isn't science fiction slated for the year 2100.
Yeah.
Very soon, you will likely have an ACI in your pocket. A system that can pass what we call the modern Turing test.
Right.
Unlike the old Turing test where an AI just had to chat well enough to fool a human, the modern Turing test is based on action. Imagine giving your phone the prompt. Make me $1 million on Amazon in the next 6 months with a $10,000 budget.
And the ACI will autonomously research market trends, source a manufacturer on Alibaba, negotiate the shipping contracts, design the product packaging, set up the storefront, and run dynamic marketing campaigns, adjusting its strategy daily based on real-world supply chain data.
It's crazy.
It will literally do all the work of a 50-person company.
It gives you the individual godlike power. But the terrifying part of the proliferation default we've been talking about is it gives everyone else that exact same power too. How do we navigate a society where 8 billion people wield the capabilities of entire corporations or nation states in their pockets?
This raises an important question. While this coming wave is undeniably pushing humanity to a precipice, putting our heads in the sand isn't an option. Understanding these forces, mapping out the mechanisms of hyperevolution and asymmetry as we've done today, is the only way we can begin to demand the robust governance, the technical safety locks, and the societal shifts required to actually survive them.
Which leaves us with one final, lingering thought for you to chew on. Think back to the start of our conversation when we asked you to look around your room at the dead matter, the atoms we've spent centuries shaping to our will.
Yeah.
If our biology and our cognitive intelligence, the very things that have historically defined us as a unique apex species, are no longer uniquely ours, but just codes that can be printed, edited, and vastly outpaced by machines in an afternoon, does that diminish what it means to be human? Or does freeing ourselves from our biological limitations finally give us the chance to figure out what the human soul actually is? Something to mull over. Until next time.